So happy you are here with us. Today, we're going to be talking about redirecting stress and anxiety. And we've got some great tips for you. Most of us experience stress and anxiety, either some of us is all the time. It's a battle, a daily battle. And then for some of us, it's every once in a while. So no matter what the case is for you, pay attention because these tips are going to help you redirect the anxiety and the stress that you experience. So, I'm Coach Pamsky, and I am so happy you're here. I direct women into coming out of the effects of being in dysfunctional homes and situations. So I work with business women and mompreneurs. I am the creator of Pamsky's Place, a life learning center for women to get the tools that they need to be able to overcome those effects and to be able to change the way they live the rest of their life story. So I'd like to introduce Debbie. Debbie, who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name is Debbie D. Waba or Debbie Dowling Waba, and I am an anxiety strategist. I work with women to help them to overcome their stress and anxiety so that they can get back to doing the things that they love that they would normally do, but the anxiety and stress is holding them back.
Mm,
So that's me.
so good. So I know for me, I grew up in a home that was very dysfunctional. There was a lot of stress, there was a lot of uncertainty, fighting. And not everyone who has anxiety and stress has grown up in a home like that. But it definitely, when we have to deal with people in life, it can often cause stress and anxiety, or certain situations that we have to face in life can cause stress and anxiety. So, Debbie, let's talk about some things that can help us to be able to manage that, maybe be able to work through, to be able to um, achieve the things we want to achieve, maybe get to that next place we want to be, or not be in that dark room where we don't wanna go out and face the world.
Mhm.
How do we do that? What are some tips that you have that can help us to overcome anxiety and stress?
Okay, well, before we get to that, I want to share a little bit about my story because then you'll understand why I actually came up with these different things and the different tips and tricks that we're going to talk about. So I did have a traumatic experience in my teenage years, which I won't get into here. But it didn't really manifest until when I was in my early 20s and I was sitting in a classroom and all of a sudden, I just had this feeling come over me, and I was like, "What is this?" So initially, the teacher thought, "Oh, maybe you're having low blood sugar," or she got the nurse. They tried to give me orange juice, but the feeling wasn't going away. So my mom and my sister had to come and get me because they wouldn't let me leave, even though all I could think of in my head was, "I gotta get out of here. I want to go. I got to go," which is your flight, because when you have an anxiety attack, you can go into fight, flight, or freeze. Well, I was in the flight mode. And I remember waiting for them. And then it kept happening. And I was like, well, what is this? So, of course, went through the whole, is it your sugar? Went for testing for that. Wasn't that, Finally, I went to see a psychiatrist, and, my family was like, "Oh, you don't need a psychiatrist." Well, I went to a psychiatrist and they're like, "Well, no, what you're feeling is anxiety." And I was officially diagnosed with social anxiety panic disorder, which, when you're a person that loves people, it's like, "Oh my goodness, what do you mean? Like social anxiety? Because I love people, so why would I get anxiety around them?" But, anyway, so the majority of my adult life, I've had it, and it comes and goes. I noticed during times when I'm feeling a little more stressed, it's more prevalent. But, there was few years where I didn't really experience at all, and then I went through a phase where I didn't want to leave my house. I was agoraphobic, and even to get the mail from the mailbox, which was literally all I had to do was open up my front door, and the mailbox was right on the outside of the front door. To actually do that and go in to grab the mail, I was like, I would spend 20 minutes talking to myself about opening that door to get the mail. But, having all the children that I had, that I have, I shouldn't, it's like, how am I going to go and do all the things with them and be there for them when I don't even want to leave my four walls? So I started to find ways to cope and manage it myself, which it's been quite the journey. And when I moved to Florida, it was almost non-existent. And then I had another experience that kind of triggered it again. And I I learned I had to learn how to basically redirect it again and kind of there goes my assistant. Always that
Mine's
assistant.
not far either.
Well, the door was shut, but he opened it. But anyway, so, and I had to find I mean, I even tried, like, well, I had to go back to my roots because I was trying to drink it away and just do things that weren't healthy. And I said, "Why am I doing this to myself? Why am I doing this to myself? It's not helping me." And I really just needed to get back to the roots. So I started to focus in on the tips that we're going to share. But at the same time, um, realizing that I wish that I had had someone that was able to hold my hand through this entire journey and tell me, first of all, what you're feeling is real and not dismiss it as if I was crazy.
Mhm.
Tell me I was going to be okay and give me ways to basically cope and manage it.
Mhm.
So that's how I am where I am today. And my whole plan with the whole, anxiously overcoming. See, I'm anxious today, and I actually had to practice the tips that we're gonna give today because of my
And
anxiety.
that's what makes it so good. That's what makes it so good. So I'd like to unpack a few things that you said because I
Yes.
think it's important for our listeners to hear this. One of the things that you had said was you had an experience that you weren't, it didn't sound like you were totally aware of that experience until one particular day. You know, you became anxious. And do you feel like, and I think people need to hear this. Do you feel like often the anxiety can be caused by things that we're not even aware of that either happened to us or is happening around us?
Okay, so yes, and here's the thing. I was aware of what happened to me, but
Okay,
I kept trying to bury it and I
sure.
didn't deal with it. And that was what really, I think, manifested it. And when you try to keep things in and you don't get to the root of what it is that is caught like is bothering you or is causing feelings within you, it's always going to be there. And it may just be a situation that switch gets turned on and it kind of just bubbles to the top. So yeah.
Well, and the truth is that when you're feeling anxiety anyway, the last thing that you feel like you wanna do is deal with emotions that is actually um, adding to this or even causing this because like what you said, I hid a lot of what had happened to me. I knew it was there. It wasn't that I didn't remember it. It was I didn't wanna touch it. I didn't wanna go there. I didn't wanna deal with it. And because I didn't wanna deal with it, because it just seemed so incredibly overwhelming, I tucked it away thinking it was just gonna go away, and it didn't. It actually got built upon until things became so overwhelming that I became suicidal. And in that, talk about stress. I was dealing with so much stress and so much anxiety, and I didn't realize where it was really coming from until one day I decided, you need you need to face this stuff. Like, this is the reason. These are the root causes. Now, I do get it because there's a couple other things you said I want us to unpack, but I do get it. For some people, it's not that they had a traumatic past or they had a traumatic experience. There are some people who have hormone imbalances that causes them to have anxiety attacks and panic attacks and stress. So just know this isn't always a situation that you've experienced in your past or you're experiencing now. It can also be a hormone imbalance, medical reasons why these things are happening. Maybe you're going through menopause, just different things like that too. So just understand that this isn't just something that's caused by situations that we've been through. Debbie, the other thing that you said was you went to a psychologist. And I love that because we often feel like we're a failure when we have to get help. And I would like you as well as myself speak about how important it is to get help. Like, yes, and I know for myself to speak out what was going on inside of me, I had the fear that someone was going to reject me, that they were going to judge me, and that it meant I was a failure. And going and getting help doesn't mean any of those things, but it's the true feelings that we feel when we recognize, I can't do this myself and I probably need to reach out. But if I reach out and I'm rejected one more time, or I'm told that you're crazy because you already feel crazy. You
Mhm.
don't want someone else telling you're crazy. You know, it's these are true feelings that we feel inside. And so I just want to say that reach out because there are people who will support you and can give you tools to help you, and they will not say you're crazy because like Debbie and I, we understand. We've
Mhm.
been there. So, Debbie, what would you like to speak into that?
Yeah, and here's the thing. So, when my regular doctor said about going to a psychiatrist, I was like, "What do you mean?" Like that, I'm saying, "Okay, am I crazy?" Because that's how you feel. Because back then, there was a big stigma about going to a psychiatrist. Like
Mhm.
my dad's like, "I'm not going to no shrinky dink," like he because I wanted my parents to be a part of it, and I'm not going no shrinky dink that head doctor. I don't, and he just went on and on. And at that point, I was like, "I'm gonna go to anybody I need to get the answers, and I don't care how woo-woo it looks or, people think I am crazy. I don't care." I just knew I didn't wanna feel that way. I
Yes.
just knew that I needed answers, and I didn't wanna feel that way anymore.
And I think that's it, is that things get to a point where you know you can't stay where you are, but the fear of where you might need to go is real because that's the unknown. But things are so bad that you're willing to do whatever it takes, whatever that next step is that you need to take is so incredibly important. And you have to ask yourself, do I want to stay where I am? Like, do I really like the way things are? And when stress and anxiety is high, it's no, no, it doesn't feel good. So push yourself to do that next step of reaching out and getting help because there are people who have great tools. I mean, right here, you have two people that would, you know, do whatever we could to help because we know what it feels like. So, Debbie, the other thing that you did mention that I think it's important for us to talk about is labels. I know often we don't want to be labeled. So it's another reason why we won't get help. Or when we're diagnosed with anxiety, depression, it it sometimes feels like a label and oh, I'm one of them. And we can take on that identity of being anxious. And I just want to say when you are diagnosed, please understand that that's not your identity. It's just what's going on. It's just a signal that says, hey, this is what's going on, and this is what can help you. Because often, if we don't know what's going on, that scares us more than getting the diagnosis and saying, oh, okay, well, I really don't like this. I mean, I don't know anyone that really likes having anxiety. But if you know that's what's going on with you, then you can start taking the steps to help you. So, labeling, try not to look at it as being labeled, just look at it as a diagnosis and a way to start getting the treatment that you need.
Yeah, and that was, the most important thing is understanding what it was that I was going through and having that diagnosis so that I could deal with it and find out the ways. But again, going back then, it was hard because nobody wanted to talk about it. And that's why I felt like it was really important for me to step out into the world and say, like anxiety is my superpower. It's, this is how I can help people and help others so that they know that there is somebody out there that knows how they're feeling, that knows what they're going through, and that can help them walk them through and give them different ways to cope and manage it. Because when you don't have a clue, you'll just roll into a ball and stay in bed, which is pretty much what I did for a while because I just didn't know what to do with myself and I didn't know how to cope and manage it. So,
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that when we're able to acknowledge that, um, beautiful things can happen.
yes.
Beautiful things can happen, and the last thing that we need to do when we have anxiety and depression is stuff it, hide it, and pretend. I've done that, and I'm sure you did too. I spent years pretending that everything was okay because I didn't want the outside world to know that I was a mess.
Mhm.
Inside, I was chaotic, I was stressed out, and I was not managing well, but most people didn't even know that because I hid it. I put that facade on, went out. You know how we do it. I'm fine. I'm okay. Everything's great. Put the smile on. And inside, you're about ready to stab everybody because you don't want to be there, but you're trying to be what everybody else needed you to be and hiding what was really going on. And the greatest thing that ever happened for me was the day when I said, "This is how bad it is." And that was because I was suicidal. I was going to take my life. I had 3 beautiful children, a wonderful husband, running 2 businesses and successful, and I was suicidal. And it was because of this the stress, the anxiety, and the depression that I was experiencing. And for me, it was because most of it was because of past things I had experienced, and then me behaving certain ways because of that. So being able to speak out and say, "Hey," and you who are listening, this might be the first time that you've had that nudge of, you know what? They're right. I really need to speak out. And I'm going to encourage you. Do it. Speak out. Grab someone that you trust. Get on the hotline. Get a hold of Debbie. Get a hold of me, whoever, but reach out because that is going to be your very first step to freedom, to being able to learn how to cope, manage the anxiety and the stress. All right, Debbie. So let's get into
But
I
I
loved
just
all that.
I did wanna add something though, like, for me, my anxiety it was worse because I was hiding it. So I would get anxiety about hiding the anxiety, and the most freeing moment for me was when I started to share.
Yes.
And I am e I am very open book about it now, and, I've explained to everybody because this is me. I'm perfectly imperfect, and that's this is who I am, and this is why I may be standing in front of you in 1 second, and you may not see me the next, but at least you know why, because sometimes, I'm in places and I get that feeling of just being overwhelmed, and I just have to go outside for air,
I
or I have to just do something to get out of that moment that I'm in, and just knowing how to do it and having all the things, available.
And to know that it is okay to do what you need to do. If it's checking out for a little bit just to regroup, if it means making a phone call and saying, "Hey, I'm not doing really good at this moment," whatever, and we're going to talk about self care, but whatever it is, you need to tell yourself it is okay and give yourself permission to do those things that are healthy to be able to help you cope and manage with anxiety and stress.
Yeah.
All right, Debbie. So that leads us into what are some, I know you have the top 4 tips of being able to manage and help with anxiety and depression. What's the first one?
The first one is meditation. I think whenever you can take the time to slow down and to really just relax, which meditation for me has been huge. I do guided meditation though. I do not do just music and sound baths or anything like that, because for me, especially if I'm feeling anxious and I start a meditation, hearing somebody else's voice distracts me from that moment. And I just choose the guided meditation because it just works out for me, because I can get lost in that person's voice and what they're saying and get out of my head, because most of the time with the anxiety, it's about getting out of your own head. So for me, that's worked best. And there's apps for that out there. Some are free, some are paid. Insight Timer is a one of them that is a free one, and then there's Aura, which that's actually the one I use. That is a paid one, but I just resonated with that one better.
Yeah, I think for everybody, different things work, so you need to figure out, experiment a little bit, find out what works for you, but the important part is do it because it is something that helps ground you, be able to pull you out of that place of anxiety and actually calm your system down. There's somatic psychotherapy that is incredibly helpful. And the reason it's helpful is because when you're experiencing stress and anxiety, it's not just in your head, it's stored in your body too.
Mhm.
And if you can, when you're meditating, there's certain things that you can do that can actually help you be able to ground yourself. One of them actually is while you're meditating, and there's different meditations that will actually take you through this, where it will actually have you analyze your body, just kind
Mhm.
of go through your body and see where are you storing, where is the tension. Now for me, it's usually right here. I have it all usually in my neck and my shoulders, but recognizing where you're holding the tension, because sometimes it can be in your stomach area, in your core area. And each place, if you recognize what's going on, it actually can be a message and help you understand what's going on with your emotions, with your mind, and with your body. There's another one where you can tense up certain parts of your body and then release it. And it helps. One of the things it does is, as you're meditating, it's helping you focus on that particular part of your body, but then releasing it. So there's definitely, many different ways to be able to do meditation. And I'll be honest, in the Christian world, when I heard meditation, it was like, oh no, because back in the day, meditation was a lot different than what it is today.
Mhm.
There's so many different forms of it today. And so please, if you have that mindset of what you think meditation is, know that it doesn't have to be a new age thing. It can be very Christ centered. It can be, you can have Christian music going, whatever it is, but just know that everybody has their own way. And just because you tried meditation once and didn't like it, maybe you need to change the way you the form that you use to be able to meditate. So really good. That was really good, Debbie.
Yeah, and I wanna add because, like, one of the meditations that I love because you brought up the whole thing about the stigma around meditation.
Mhm.
One of them that's one of my favorites is really, just this guy who takes you tells you a story about ancient Egypt. And I just love, and he kinda tries to put you there, and it's just, like, I love that because I can use my imagination of I mean, I've actually been to the pyramids, so I've seen them in person, but when you're sitting there and just envisioning, "Okay, I'm sitting here and, like, I'm looking at the pyramids and, sitting looking at the desert," or whatever it is that he's telling you to look at. I haven't made it through the meditation because I that's when I do at night before bed, and I wind up falling asleep. So I've never really made it through the whole thing, but,
That yeah, I wanted to tell you a story when you're done.
yeah, but that's the whole thing is it doesn't necessarily mean just sitting there and going, because a lot of people think it's just sitting there doing no, there's stories, there's, they can just have you do like you said, where they'll say, "Okay," like, "Stretch your legs, hold, release." And then after they have you stretch everything, they'll say, "Okay, now let's start with your legs. Do you feel anything tight there?" "No." Yes, whatever your answer is, and then they'll say, "Okay, relax,"
Yeah.
and that's the whole thing.
There's just so many different ways. So make sure that you where your mindset is on meditation because there's many different forms. But yeah, I had to share this story. So I had ran into this guy that he had meditation tapes. Back then it was tapes.
Okay.
And I was listening to them, and every single time when he got to a certain point of his meditation, he had very soft, calm voice, and he would take you through these different images, and I can tell you what it was. There's something about the color yellow for me. It's of course, a very warm color, but he would talk about picture the sun shining on you, and you're in a field, and it's just a warm day, and I'm picturing all this, and it would always be shortly after that, bam, I would fall asleep
Mhm.
because I was in that state of just being so calm, and so I love the sun. I'm a sun girl, and I would picture myself with that warm breeze and the sun on me, and I would fall asleep because I was just so calm. I wanna tell you, if you're ever in meditation and that happens to you, and when you wake up, please don't have shame over that. It's actually a really good thing because that means you became so relaxed that your body was able to take that deep breath, calm down, and be in that state of just calmness, and that's a good thing. I used to feel bad about that because it was like, I never made it to the end of the tape, but the purpose of it actually was working. So, all right, Debbie, what is our second tip?
Exercise.
Oh, okay.
Now, it could be anything just from walking. If you have like a stationary bike in your home, I don't like gyms personally, and that's just because I feel like everybody's watching me. Even though I know everybody's there to do the same thing, I just don't feel comfortable. So you can find online exercise programs to do, but the important thing is that you move. Turn on some music and just start dancing in your house. I mean, I have a hula hoop that I go out and hula hoop every once in a while. Get out in the fresh air. That's, that, and even in the winter, if it's cold, just stick your head out that window and stick your head back in. Just that change of your environment. But yeah, you definitely want to get some kind of movement in, and it could be 20 to 30 minutes, but just that little bit helps because it gets all your good juices flowing, and
Yep.
it does help you to clear your mind and just you know
Get those endorphins moving. Yeah, and I know what our next one's coming, so I kinda don't wanna say it yet, but I know for me, the reason why I don't go to the gym, and I tried to do that for a year. They had a swimming pool. I love to swim, but I'm one of those people that I need a good routine, and if I go to the gym, it is harder for me personally to get in my car, drive to a gym, exercise, get a shower or whatever I need to do afterwards, come back, and then try to get ready for my day, go on through my day.
Mhm,
And I've been since I was 21, 22 years old, I've exercised and I've done it in my home with, you know, DVDs, with YouTube, all those things because I am way more successful that way. And it does get your endorphins going and it does make you feel good to be able to push some of that out. And plus, for us women, a lot of times our problem is with our own self image, the way we look. And though that should not be our gauge on how we feel, it often is. So if you're exercising, you often feel good about the muscle toning that you're getting
mhm.
and the fresh breath outside if you're going for a brisk walk or whatever it is can really help you out. So if you're in that rut where you're not exercising, I'm going to encourage you to get off of your butt, get on your feet, and let's do it because you deserve to feel good. And I know that you can get stuck in that rut where you just don't want to. Your mind says, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. But tomorrow doesn't come. So get up and get moving now and watch what a difference it makes for you.
Yeah, and I have to say that I too, like, aside from not going to the gym, I also found that I am more successful working out at home because I can't make excuses. I
Mhm.
can't make the excuses of, well, I don't feel like driving, or it's not open right now, or it's the busy time. There's are no excuses. You can't escape the excuses when you work out at home because there is none.
We can make so many excuses for ourselves, and we're not helping ourselves at all. Those excuses are not serving us because we are not achieving and getting things done. We are not feeling better about ourselves. Matter of fact, it's taking us into that spiral of feeling worse about ourselves. And then we really got to try to get ourselves out of the pit. So do not make excuses for yourself. And if you have a problem with that, please reach out because mindset is huge when it comes to anxiety, depression, stress, and getting yourselves out of those excuses. All right, Debbie, what is the third one?
Routine.
Ooh,
Routine
there
in
it is.
there it is, the routine. Um, like for me, I have a morning routine and I have a night routine. And during the about, mid-afternoon, I have my check-in routine. But I personally like in my morning routine, I get up, I journal, I have my coffee, I just sit with myself and have that quiet time and get ready for the day, whatever I have to do to get ready for the day. And then I focus on what I need to for the next few hours. And then I have that time where I stop and it's my pause and I just check in with myself and see, okay, where am I? What do I have to still accomplish? And what else do I need to get done for the day? And then once dinner time hits, then it starts the whole night routine between making, dinner and cleaning up and then, doing the like nightly stuff that you normally do before you go to bed, whether it be wash your face, put on your night cream, get rid of the wrinkles that are coming in. um, and then I get into bed and then finally I will meditate. But I try to leave some open spaces in my routine for the simple reason of you never know when you're going to have that moment. And I know for myself, if I have to deviate from my routine, the one that I cannot, it's, well, I shouldn't say I cannot, because sometimes you just have to, but
Mhm.
the hardest one for me to deviate from is the morning one because that sets my day up. And if I don't start my day in a certain way, doing my normal stuff, that just can, for the rest of the day, I'm off. I am off. But I do leave time in the day because, things come up, especially with kids, things pop up. So I know that I have to leave certain times in the day that if something comes up, I know that okay, I have this to do, but I can't do it at this time because this just happened, but I do have time later on to get it done. So I just have to leave that padding, I guess you want to call it, in my schedule because you just never know. And sometimes it all goes just all, just
Haywire.
yeah, haywire, and you have to let it go. But for me, the most important thing is trying to stick to it as much as possible.
Yes. Yeah. Morning routine is better for me. The way I start out my day definitely makes a difference in how the rest of my day goes most of the time. However, I do know a lot of people are not morning people, and that is not even, they try to make that their routine and it's not a part of their natural rhythm. So, again, get to know yourself really well. Don't have any shame over the fact if you're not a morning person and morning does not work for you, then afternoon, evening, before you go to bed. Again, it's what works for you. But being able to have a routine, maybe writing it out, I know it takes a little bit of effort to do that. But if you write it out once, that's all you'll really have to do unless your season changes. And that
Mhm.
way you can look at it and say, okay, at this time, I'm going to do this because a habit takes anywhere from 28 to 30 some days to form. So if you can stick with it and if you can have a buddy to help you, that can hold you accountable, that you can say, hey, I really want to make some changes in my life. I've really been feeling a lot of anxiety and um, stress, and I want to do something about this. And I'm following some tips. So I wrote down some of the things I want to do as part of my routine. And again, it's you knowing yourself really well and finding out what works for you. But I've got this routine written down. Can you help me follow it for at least 28 to 32 days? And um that is so helpful because then that person can ask you, "Hey, how are you doing?" Or maybe they'll actually do it with you, and that's the best
Right.
because you have so much more fun. But it does help with anxiety and the stress because when you're scattered, when you're not prioritizing things, when you're not taking time out for you, the stress builds up
Yes.
and that causes a lot of anxiety. So if you're in that place where you're feeling a lot of stress and anxiety, my first suggestion is to pause, sit down and take some time out and assess where are you and what do you need? And what kind of routine should you have that will work for you? You are not a mold. You do not have to look like everybody else. I know that there's a lot of suggestions out there and a lot of plans that say you have to do it this way and you have to do it that way, and you're probably sick of them. So figure out what works for you because it's really you that needs to be able to manage your stress and your anxiety. All right. Debbie, what is our fourth one?
Well, the fourth one, which was actually the hardest one for me,
Mhm.
was self-care.
Oh,
And it was the hardest thing for me to even embrace because I was busy taking care of everybody else, but I wasn't taking care of myself. And as moms and as women in general, we tend to be the caretakers and we don't take care of ourselves. So
mhm.
once I started to really focus in on taking time for myself and doing self-care, whether I mean it could be going to get your nails done, going to have a cup of coffee with a friend, maybe you want to sit outside with your coffee or your tea or whatever beverage of your choice. For me, it's sometimes it's hobbies. I just like to do things, so I make sure I make time to do artsy craftsy things, and but I now take the time to do that. I find ways that are going to fill my cup and make sure that I am taking care of myself and giving myself that self-love that you get through the self-care because you're focusing on yourself and taking care of yourself. And again, like I said earlier, I think it's really hard as women in general to take care of ourselves. We look out for everybody else, but we forget that we need some time too, and we need to do things that we want to do and love to do.
Absolutely. And I'm all about self-care. That's what Pamsky's Place is all about, the Virtual Life Learning Center. And the reason it's been so important to me was because I was terrible at taking care of myself. I thought it was selfish. I thought I had to take care of everybody else. And actually, in the beginning, I didn't even know really what self-care was.
Mhm.
People I would hear those words, but I didn't really know and understand what it meant, and that's why the Life Learning Center is so important to me because there are 6 pillars of self-care, and, we often think of self-care as just the bubble bath and a spa, and it's like, n yes, that is part of it, and we need to take time to do those things, but there's so many other things. So let me ask you this. Are you a people pleaser? Are you trying to get people's approval? If you nod like this and you're going to be honest with yourself, I'm going to tell you that one of the reasons that you do that is because you are not taking time to take care of yourself. Because when we talk about stress and anxiety and you're a people pleaser, guess what's feeding that stress and anxiety? And if you could take a little time out, assess what's going on with you, and do some self care. So that looks maybe mentally, you need to do some self care, maybe emotionally,
Mhm.
physically, spiritually. Um, and financially, maybe your stress is caused because you haven't taken any self-care in the topics of financial. And so whatever those are, you need to take time out and look at them and assess it. Again, a good reason to have a coach, a mentor, somebody to help you with that because they can ask you the questions you're not going to ask yourself because you're just too close to it. So when we talk about self-care, don't just think about the spa and the bubble bath. Ask yourself, am I what areas, what one of those pillars or many of those pillars do I need to start focusing on? Pick one. Don't overwhelm yourself because again, if you pick all of them, you're going to be like, this is too much and I can't do this. Pick one pillar and start working on that one. And when you feel like you've got that one, you've been spending time on that one and you feel kind of full with that one, then pick another pillar. Because the honest truth is that we all need self-care and we all need to work at it and we've never arrived. We're always going to need to do self-care because we live in a crazy world with people who can test us and make things difficult for us. And so for us to be who we need to be, self-care is extremely important. Debbie, what when it comes to self-care, let's go to the mental. I actually want to go to the pillar of mental self-care.
Yes.
What is one thing that you do mentally that you need to do for your own self-care?
For me, it's definitely a quiet time, like, sometimes I just need and I've even gone sat in my closet because sometimes I just need to not hear anybody, not speak to anybody, not see anything, just, like, I just need that moment to just do nothing.
Mhm.
Like, listen to the birds, I guess you could say, but that for me is the one thing that I would have to say is the biggest thing is just having that moment to be silent and breathe.
Yeah. For me, when it comes to the pillar of mental self-care, I often my mind is very quick. It can
Mhm.
focus on 6 things at one time and go ping, ping, ping. And so one of the things that is best for me is either the quietness or having soft music on but I also need to combine it with something that's gonna help my thoughts on something better. So, in scripture, it tells us not to be conformed to the world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Well, I take that pretty serious because God knew what our mind was gonna be like. He created it, and the mind is a fantastic thing, but it can also be self-sabotaging
Yeah.
and really hurt us in a way of diminishing the power that we actually have in our mind. And so for me, because I have to redirect my mind is what I have to do. And so I will have scriptures and quotes and I'll have them all up on my mirror. I have them at if you sat at my desk, you'll see them here. And I will glance over to them because, especially like scriptures to me is truth. And I'm all about, I need to take the lies out and put truth in. And so I will have these around me where I can quickly glance at it, and I can even do it while I'm talking to somebody else and look at it as a reminder of, okay, this is what the truth is. All those thoughts I'm having, this is what the truth is, especially because I will admit this week I had a pretty rough week. I'm a high encourager. I love encouraging other people. This week was a challenge for me because I got some news that was very disappointing to me, and I was pretty upset about it. And when I got the news, and it wasn't once, it actually was 3 different avenues of news that was disappointing, and I my mind started going in not good places. I started taking it personal. I started thinking, what's wrong with me? And going down that rabbit hole, that slippery slope. And I'll tell you what I did, Debbie. That was just, I've never done this before. And I want the audience to hear this because we're all about finding things that work for you. And normally what I will do is I will meditate on a scripture or quote, try to get my mind to switch. And then I will sit in my prayer journal and I'll just start writing a prayer out to God. I didn't exactly do that this time. I actually got on my computer, pulled up a blank Word document. I closed my eyes. I know the keys on my computer, so I don't need them to be able to type. I closed my eyes and I just started typing. And it was a prayer, which, if you're not comfortable with that, it can be just typing out whatever comes to your mind. But it was so soothing and so comforting and so moving. And I think it was because I didn't need to have my eyes open to write.
Mhm.
And there was just like this difference. Because I'm one of those people that will say, right, like there's something amazing that happens between your head and your brain when you're writing out on paper. But never have I just closed my eyes and typed, and something different happened. And I liked it. It was like, wow, this is powerful. And when I opened my eyes, was everything spelled correctly and all the no, it wasn't about that. Now, if you're going to use it for something, you can go back and do that if you want later. I wouldn't even do it in that session. I would just close the computer, move on, and just relish in the moment of that peace that you have after you've done that. But that it was an amazing experience, and it really helped me with the disappointments that I faced during this week. But again, I had to change my thinking. I had to start putting myself in other people's shoes and saying, "Okay, what might be going on with them that this is what they did or this is what happened?" And that really helped me out because we think we always have the answers when in fact we don't. We don't know what's going on outside of us. We don't see everything. And so sometimes we need to put ourselves in the situation and see what the possibilities were as to why this happened.
Yeah. So true.
So we are going to wrap this up with Debbie. I know you have a favorite quote. What is your favorite quote that you like to just focus on?
Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning to dance in the rain.
Mhm.
Because we're gonna have storms throughout our life, and we can either sit back and do nothing, or we can learn how to dance right through them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the storms are gonna come. It's not a matter of are they gonna come? It's a matter of what are you gonna do when they do come, and what techniques, what things do you have to help you? It can totally stress you out, and, I do wanna say if you feel stressed right away, give yourself permission to feel the stress,
Mhm.
and don't have shame over that, but don't get stuck in it either. Make sure you use your tools and those things that are gonna help you be able to move through, because there are amazing things waiting for you on the other side. Well,
Absolutely.
Debbie, it was so great to have us together again. It was a couple weeks that we didn't get to do this, so it's great to be back together, and we look forward to seeing you next week. If you're watching this recording, please leave comments and questions, and we will come back and we will answer them because we always go back and read them. Thank you so much for being here. It's
Thank you.
time to thrive while alive.